The federal government is stepping into it to stabilize Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two mortgage giants that have been threatened by the housing crisis that's rattled both Main Street and Wall Street. CBS News correspondent Priya David is at the New York Stock Exchange with more this morning. Good morning, Priya.
Harry, good morning. Well, Wall Street is very concerned about what this week will hold, particularly following last week's stock price nosedive for both institutions. And the federal government's announcement that it's stepping in to help Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac isn't helping calm any nerves. The Asian markets are both down this morning. Japan's Nikkei index is off 0.2%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index off almost a full percentage point, and that's because international investors are starting to question just how deep America's debt problems really are.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are huge companies that together hold or guarantee almost half of all mortgages in this country, more than $5 trillion total. Both government-sponsored enterprises are rapidly losing money and stock value, declining confidence in the economy, which is why the Bush administration wants a rescue package. It would let the government buy stock in both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and allow both to borrow more money.
The government will step in, the marketplace will step in. The housing market's not going to completely stop functioning in America. That's just not going to happen.
In fact, it's been said both companies are too big to fail, but that doesn't mean there won't be some repercussions for homeowners and home buyers. While it won't affect your current payments, it could soon become a little harder to get a new loan or refinance an existing one. The real estate-related problems don't end there. Today, the aggressive mortgage bank IndyMac reopens, but is now being run by the feds. It's the fifth bank to fail just this year, and analyst Art Hogan is not so sure it'll be the last.
Could another bank blow up? Is there another major surprise for us? It's definitely possible.
And there will be a critical test of confidence this morning as Freddie Mac is expected to auction off $3 billion worth of short-term debt bonds. Harry.
And what happens with that auction is going to have a lot to do about their future. All right, CBS's Priya David on Wall Street. Joining us now is Senator Christopher Dodd, chairman of the Senate Banking Committee. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Harry.
Do Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae need to be rescued by the federal government?
Well, not necessarily. First of all, I think the actions being taken by the administration are probably the right steps. We talked over the weekend. I'm going to have both Chairman Bernanke and I'm asking Henry Paulson, the Secretary of the Treasury, and Chris Cox to be before the Banking Committee tomorrow morning to more fully explain these actions. We need to pass the legislation that was adopted by the Senate on Friday evening, dealing with the reforms of the GSEs, which are critically important. And IndyMax, we're going to have hearings on that. Chuck Schumer has asked for hearings. I agree with him on it.
Right.
We ought to be looking exactly what happened with that bank. I think these are the right steps. What's important, Harry, here as well is to calm people's fears. There's a lot of fear here, and fear isn't exactly facts. These GSEs are very well capitalized at more than adequate levels. They weren't bottom feeders when it came to these subprime mortgages like other banks were. So there's a lot more reason to have some confidence in what's going on here than to have people get a run here or have fear take over. So this is a very important week,
right.
But I'd encourage people out there to be calm about this. This is not a time for people to be engaged in any kind of scare tactics.
However, we just talked about IndyMac, which is this big bank out in California. Right. They're one of these banks that made these crazy mortgages, no-look mortgages, no paper mortgages, nothing. They had to be taken over by the FDIC. There was a practical run on the bank last week already. A lot of the newspapers this morning reporting there'll be more to come. How many do you expect will go down?
I don't expect many more. Sheila Bair, who's the head of the FDIC, has indicated there are problems. And as you point out very accurately here, there's a big difference between IndyMax and Fannie and Freddie. IndyMax was engaged in these very, very bad mortgages, luring people into deals they could never afford. That's not the case with Fannie and Freddie. So there may be some more, but I'm more optimistic about Fannie and Freddie than I am some of these banks.
Let me ask you also then very quickly, we feel like we're in a financial world turned upside down. Abu Dhabi buys the Chrysler building last week. InBev from Belgium is getting ready to purchase Budweiser beer. What kind of a world are we living in right now?
Well, a very different one, and this is one of the real challenges. And obviously at the center of all of this economic crisis, again, as you pointed out, is this housing crisis and foreclosures. 8,000 to 9,000 people every day are filing for foreclosure. Unfortunately, this didn't have to happen, Harry. Going back some time, had the regulators been on the job and doing the job they should have been doing years ago, then we wouldn't have had the problem with so many millions of Americans being lured into deals they could never afford. So we need to stabilize the situation, as I hope we will this week, pass this legislation that we've talked about that could do a great deal to keeping people in their homes, and then get our economy back on a solid footing.
Senator Chris Dodd, we thank you for your time this morning, sir. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, Harry.